Hello everyone, this is Gaurav from Automation Hacks, and in this video, we are going to look at language features in Java 15 that are very useful for automated testing. So let's get started. We are going to look at a couple of features in Java 15, specifically text blocks and helpful null pointer exceptions. Now, what are text blocks? And let me just walk you through with an example so that it makes more sense to you. So here I have an example test. Let's call it a test, right? It's a simple test ng test. And what you notice is quite often when you're working with automation, you have to work with, say, JSON structures or SQL queries, things that can actually stretch beyond a single line. Now, how people usually handle something like this is they will concatenate the string. It will result in a pretty ugly looking string, right? But now all those problems are kind of solved with text blocks. So to start a text block, you do triple quotes and then you end it with triple quotes. This is like the syntax for it. And within this, you don't need to really concatenate the string or anything. So here you can see I have a simple sort of JSON with couple of keys and values. And that's about it, right? I terminate it just like any other string. And just to demonstrate that indeed what I have presented is going to be equal to a version where, you have to insert line characters. So I've written a fluent assertion where I'm checking that this HTML is equal to this string. Now you can notice that here each of the individual codes are escaped using backslash as well as new line characters are introduced, right? So let's run this test. And you can see that both the strings are essentially equal. So this is extremely useful when you have to work with, say, longer strings that can span, multiple lines. Also, just to demonstrate that this is indeed a string like any other, we can call any of the methods that can be called on a string, right? So you can do a contains check. So I can check that this indeed contains a string like John. And I can also check that the index of, some particular character in the string is definitely greater than 0. So let's just check that. And yes, that works fine. So this you can use in your automation whenever you want to have something in the code. It's very flexible. As I said, JSON and SQL are primarily the two main sort of usages that comes to mind, but probably an XML or even a YAML string, whatever be it, it is very useful even when you are like say quickly prototyping some code and whatever, right? So I have another set of extension on it as well. Like text blocks also supports escape sequences. What I mean by that is consider this sentence, right? This is a very famous quick brown fox. The sentence that involves each character in the keyboard. Also very useful if you're learning touch typing, which I highly recommend you to pick up on. Now, say I want to give it a little bit more readability, but I essentially don't want to, change the string. So I can actually just use backslash as a way to, separate the string out into multiple lines. But in essence, the character doesn't really change. So what I mean by that is, say I want to, check that this text block that I have, it contains the sentence that is there without the backslash, right? And I'm checking that this assertion passes. So as you can see, I can run it and the test assertion does not fail. Okay. And if you want to say introduce a single space, then you can use backslash s as well. So in a nutshell, text blocks are very useful, can be used as any sort of string input that you want. It's present in languages like Kotlin and Python as well, and I'm glad that Java also gets this feature. Moving on, let's take a look at another feature that was added in Java 15, which was that null pointer exceptions were made more descriptive. So what do I mean by that? So consider this simple test where I have an array, let's call it as a string array of names having a value as null. And now if you try to access something from null, you would get a null pointer exception, right? And say I was to run this code where I'm trying to access the zeroth element in this names array, which is quite obviously null, then previously we would have got an exception message like this. It would have told us, hey, you got an exception in your main thread. It will tell what kind of exception you had, and it would be kind enough for you to tell, hey, what is the specific line where the exception is, right? Which is good, which is fair enough. But now in Java 15, the null pointer exceptions and exceptions in general are made more descriptive. So let's run this test. And you can see this test passes. Why? Because in this particular test, I am actually checking that this code block throws an exception, right? So I'm giving expected exception as a null pointer exception. And I'm also giving that, hey, what is the expression this, exception should return? And you can see that now with Java 15 onwards, you would get a message like this, where it says, hey, I cannot load from this object array because this is null. This is much more friendlier and human readable. So automatically makes your debugging more intuitive and better than how, you are currently approaching. And that's all for this video. I hope you would use text blocks and more friendlier null pointer exceptions in your code base. And I'll see you in the next one.